This week's episode is brought to you by Campaign Refinery, an amazing new email marketing automation tool. Look, in the world of digital marketing, there's a lot to keep track of. We all know this. As much as we're in love with social media and the power of social conversation here at Social Inc. and on the All About Digital Marketing podcast, we are well aware at just how powerful email marketing can be. Email marketing is not dead. In fact, it's never been more important to help you leverage your presence everywhere else into the one channel that you'll own, regardless of what changes Facebook, Twitter, or any other platform makes in the future. I've known the founder, Travis Ketchum, for years, and he's been a past guest on the podcast, episode 15 if you want to listen to it. I've personally used his other products before, and they've been fantastic. The amount of thought that he's put into each and every one of what he's created has been incredible. I'd highly encourage you to try their free 14-day trial at campaignrefinery.com to see what world-class email marketing automation can do for you and your business. Massive thank you to Travis and Campaign Refinery for their support of the All About Digital Marketing show. Welcome to the All About Digital Marketing podcast. The show all about
digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Brought to you by Social Inc., a digital marketing agency specializing in social media and content marketing for brave brands and forward-thinking SMEs. I'm your host, Chris Bruno, and as always, we're here to bring you the most actionable tips, tricks, tools, and insights to help you achieve more when it comes to your digital marketing. Subscribe to the show and be sure to share with a friend if you found something useful or interesting. You can find all the show notes and more information on www.allaboutdigitalmarketing.co.uk. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Chris. My pleasure, mate. I'm really excited about it.
So this is a very different episode, and I think I keep saying this on this podcast because I am a big believer in experimenting and I'm a big believer in trying new things. So I'm looking forward to this, but to give everyone a little bit of context, Malcolm reached out by email, I believe it was a little while ago, a few weeks ago, and basically really liked the show, really liked what we were trying to do, and would love to have come on the show and had a bit of a chat, but didn't feel necessarily that he was the person or the expert to be able to talk about certain parts because he's fairly new to the digital marketing world and he's getting started, but actually wanted to do almost the opposite. So get a chance to come on the episode, get a little bit of recognition for having the guts to do that, by the way, Malcolm. I like that. And the second part the second part is you basically get to almost grill me. So this is almost like going to be a reverse conversation whereby you're going to be asking me some questions. I'm going to be trying to help you as much as I can. And we're hopefully going to have a really interesting convo that lots of people will find useful if they're struggling or if they're just starting out. So I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you for coming up with the idea and thanks for reaching out and asking.
Thanks so much, mate. Yeah, it's great. Should be good. I'll jump into it. I'm really thankful you took up my invitation, mate, to do this because I am really new at digital marketing, like you said, and I find it's a very hard space to kind of get any clear answers. There's so much kind of noise on the internet with it could be, this video on TikTok today or that one tomorrow on YouTube or a blog post or a new piece of software that can help a digital marketer. I find it's really hard to kind of keep a clear direction, and I'm excited you'll be able to help me out with that stuff.
So if this makes you feel any better, I'm coming up to 12 years of running an agency and I still don't feel clear about everything. So, if that makes you feel any better to start with, it might not be easing me into the whole idea of being able to answer all your questions. But I think that what you've just mentioned there, right, straight away, TikTok, everyone's shouting and screaming from the rooftops. Should I be doing TikTok? And, should I be building a YouTube channel? And actually, is there one click funnel that's going to create millions of dollars whilst you sleep, according to some other donut who calls himself a guru? I think there's just so much out there that you're completely right. It's just massively confusing.
It can be. And I should give a little bit of my background. Like I live in Costa Rica with my wife. She's Australian as well. We've been here for 4 years now. And 5 years ago, we left Australia because I got a job as a surf instructor in luxury hotels, which is really cool. So we spent 1 year in the Maldives, and that was a great time. Then the last 4 years here in Costa Rica doing the same thing at like a Four Seasons hotel close to where we live. And all of that gave me like lots of experience dealing with people face to face and all of that sort of stuff. A lot of time away from a laptop because I was in the ocean so much of the time. But all of that ended with COVID because that's just the reality. Yeah. So it was March 18th, the border closed here in Costa Rica. The hotel we worked at closed, and the border's still closed almost 6 months later.
So the thing that's
tourism.
I've got to jump in for a second. You instantly made everyone dislike you on this, listening to this podcast by saying that you're a surf instructor on the other side of the world. And
I feel like a jerk. Sorry, guys.
No, but I think everyone was like that. Serves him right. There you go. No more clients, no more business. There you go.
I had the good life for many years, and I'm so grateful that when the markets were, when the world was in a good place, I was able to really take advantage of it. Sounds terrible to say that, but I'm just grateful for that, upon reflection.
I think that's awesome.
But anyway, so mid-March, my wife and I are thinking to ourselves, okay, what are we going to do? We need to figure out something. And about a month later, having conversations with different friends around here, I realized there's a really big need for somebody with some digital marketing knowledge to help out local businesses, because they're just really behind with what I think would be normal in a lot of kind of more modern countries, even though I haven't lived in a Western country for a while. But, many companies that don't even have their business registered on Google, or they don't have a Facebook page, or they don't have a web page, and they just have a Facebook page, and businesses that are successful, that are doing a good job. Yeah, this need came up after a friend who runs a legal firm said to me, we need help. And that's kind of how it all started in April. So prior to that, I didn't have much experience in digital marketing whatsoever. About 3 years ago, I tried to build some drop shipping websites and kind of, did some Shopify tutorials and tried to learn some things that way, and had a little engagement with Facebook ads. But then honestly, I got over it. I got lazy. I didn't stick to it. And I just thought, what am I doing? Like, my life's good. I've got enough money. Like, why am I trying to do that? But times change, and here we are. But now, a few months on, I have a few clients, and they've got interesting situations, and I wanted to explain a couple of them to see what you would do if they were a client of yours.
Sounds good, man. Let's do it. You're basically in charge of this episode now, Malcolm.
Oh, good. I hope I create something worthwhile to listen to. Anyway, so one of the first clients I encountered just a couple of months ago, which was through a close friend who's one of my neighbors. His mother and his auntie write a newsletter, a monthly newsletter that's a subscription-based newsletter in the finance industry. And they have been doing this for over 40 years. And they're extremely successful. They've been doing this from Costa Rica. They've got over 5,000 yearly subscribers. They have a database of over 50,000. And they have never done anything other than write their newsletter every month. Their newsletter is really high quality. It gives great information on the markets. But now they're aging and thinking, well, they're just so backwards on all of the technology related stuff. And in I swoop to try and explain to them a path of where to go. So where would you go with that? Like a strong business that's got a successful base, they just have no idea where to go, like what to do.
So interestingly enough, there's probably a couple of questions, but are they still printing the newsletter and having it shipped to these people?
No, so they are sending it out through email, and they're using Contact. What's that program? Constant Contact.
Okay.
For the email subscribers, that's what they use. So they get it out digitally once a month, and they send once a week updates, and that's their method of communication with their base.
And so the second thing then would be on the idea of, is it a monthly recurring revenue business model?
So for them, it's a yearly subscription.
So they hit it once, they get their money, and then they have to deliver for the rest of the year.
Correct.
Okay. So ultimately, with any business that revolves around either a membership, be it monthly or yearly, the key goal obviously is going to be to keep getting new users, right? Now, by the sounds of it, somebody who's been writing a newsletter and can showcase, I've been doing this for 40 years and there are X number of people, 5,000, I think you said, that are paying us every year to get these newsletters. It means that there's already a huge level of kudos and trust with their audience that they already have. So what we're trying to do is work out, how do we replicate that for other people? And like you mentioned, right, the idea is we're in a new time. The world has shifted, the world has changed, and you don't have to go as far as Costa Rica to see businesses that are kind of reluctant to get involved in social media, or worse still, that only get involved in it because they have this feeling that, you have to be on social media, Chris, as they tell me. And I'm like that. Yeah. But if it's not going to do anything, then what's the point, right? You'd be better off not being on it at all, rather than wasting time, effort, energy, money, resources that can be often limited for companies. And I think that's what you're trying to kind of encompass for a business like that. So from my side, the first thing would be, right, okay, well, how much of this content can be broken down into smaller parts that would be enough to give somebody a bit of insight as to what we talk about. So maybe a breakdown of what's in this week's or this month's newsletter, or what the big sort of chats are going to be. And then using that little bit of information to try and entice people so that they can get a feel for what this is all about. They can see a feed, whether it be on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever it is, to see the sorts of articles, what we're kind of talking about and what it's really about. And to start building that trust in a public forum. That would be my first side of it. But the biggest thing I think that's going to be the challenge, and especially when you have founders who are less tech savvy or who are less interested in the potential of it, is what we often refer to as being our mission, which is to put social back into social media. So if you've got two people who have been writing a newsletter about finance for 40 years, again, that's a huge amount of information, experience, wealth of knowledge that they have, that they could be using to get involved in the bigger picture, the bigger conversation, that they could be used to get involved with the sorts of people that they want to have as clients, and actually get involved in those conversations that are already happening online, so that more and more people can see them and see that they're visibly being active, engaging, they're being social, and they're using social media the way it was actually meant to be made. Not to be used as a bullhorn to shout out that we got a special offer and it's 10% off this year if you buy now, but actually to be really involved, present, and to start building those relationships from the ground up.
Perfect. That's perfect.
I'll send you the bill later on. It's okay.
I'm going to get them to listen to this, Chris. Absolutely. No, the one idea, like a lot of things that you've traveled through, central meeting with someone today that gets rescheduled to next week, and then all of a sudden a month's gone by and nothing's happened. So I've been finding that with a lot of different clients, but with these guys in particular, these particular clients, I taught them to use the program Loom the other day. I don't know if you've seen Loom.
Yeah.
LOOM. Yeah. And it was like a couple of hour conversation on the phone to teach them how to use Loom via a FaceTime call. But they have managed to get a video out to their audience, their current subscriber base, of this Loom recording. And their current subscriber base, it's like the first thing they've sent out, and their current subscriber base is just like blowing up with comments, with desire to engage, and it's going to be an exciting project with them for sure.
I think video content is going to be a great way for them to maximize this as well, right? Because eventually you can get to the point where anyone who's a paid member can have access to a paywall. Pretty simple. Even if it's literally just as simple as a WordPress page that they manually kind of set people up and take them off if they want to pay for the extra. But to have the same content, but with a little bit more deeper insight, or a little bit more of a conversational style between the two of them, for example, as a video, is one, super easy for them to create. Let's be honest. It's just them chatting on a Zoom call, a bit like what we're doing, but with video on. And secondly, obviously, it gives people a secondary method to be able to actually consume that content. So there's a really nice thing about video. And again, we're actually in the process of doing a huge experiment about this with my co-director at Social Inc. And we created something that was really simple. It's a video, me and him chatting. We set up, I think the amount of preparation that went into it was we had 4 topics that we wanted to talk about, and we just had the conversation. And it's born out of the fact that we talk every day. We have these chats. We talk about some things that are slightly more insightful and some things that are slightly less insightful, like everyone. But actually, the video itself has now got a few views on YouTube and stuff like that, but it's now been repurposed. The audio has been pushed out as an experiment onto this podcast as well. I believe it's episode 59 that's gone out today, actually, whilst we're recording this. And the video then has been taken to cut some short videos. So we've got some 60-second, 90-second clips that can then be used on social media to help push people to the long format content. And we've even taken a transcript and used that to help us create blogs. So suddenly we're filling up a whole range of content and a whole pipeline of content based off of just one video, which was a 45-minute chat back and forth between myself and one of my co-directors. Now, when you think, this is the thing, right? So when you think about that, people often struggle with, but I don't know what I'd post about. I don't know what am I supposed to write in a blog article about? What am I going to say on a video or anything else? But the reality is, you know your industry, you know what you do, you know your business better than anybody else. So by being able to have that chat and recording it as a video, which again, super simple, do it on a Zoom call. I think even on a free Zoom account, you can still record locally. And also you can do it for up to 40 minutes, I want to say. So you'd be able to do that, have that conversation, and actually at the end of it, by looking back over that piece of content, getting a transcript out, getting the video together, you're suddenly going to realize that actually if you just used that and broke it into multiple different parts, you'd have at least 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of content to be able to animate all your social channels.
That's incredible. Do you mind if I ask, Chris, what methods are you using to split up that content into its various formats? Are you doing that personally, or are you working with a VA or a team to help you do that?
So we are our own team, right? So there's 4 of us that work day to day. We've got a couple of other VAs that are involved that help with various things from scheduling content or catching up on bits and pieces that we're running out of time to do. But the fundamentals of it, especially in the early stages, right? You take your own video, you use something like Otter, for example, for the transcript. Yep. Get the full written version, chuck it into Evernote or Notes or Word, Google Drive, whatever, and then literally just start carving it up yourself. So you highlight the different sections. This was about topic 1. This was about topic 2. From there, you can start to pull up, that's going to be my 4 blog titles, for example, the 4 topics that we talked about. And then after that, from the highlights of the parts that you've taken from the transcript, you're already going to have insight as to exactly which pieces of the video you want to cut. So it's going to become much easier to then go into your video and say, right, I just want this piece, from minute 3 to minute 4. And that's actually a really good piece where we're talking about X and it's a good point, and that's how we're going to use that. So I think people often do it the wrong way around, whereby they're starting by, I don't know how to use the tools, or I don't know what tools or whatever else. Keep it really basic. Just, get involved, i.e. do the video, record it, get a transcript. And already just from that, you're already going to have one long format piece of content to go on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else. You're going to then have your blog articles that you can start writing, which most people say to me, I don't know what to write about. That solves that problem because, you've already said it. So you know exactly what to write about. And then with the video stuff, there's tons of tools out there that are super simple, things from such as Headliner, for example, which is a great app that we use. And actually you can just start chopping and churning out different little small clips of it, which are going to allow you to then just absolutely massacre social media with this amazing content that always has the same purpose and it always has the same message because it's all based off the same recording.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. That's really good. That's the stuff. This is the stuff I wanted to hear, Chris. I'm stoked. So I'll move on to the next client. The next client is a legal firm. So they're a Costa Rican legal firm. They have a strong base as well, like 300 plus strong base of clients who pay for, it's less than a 4-figure amount each year, but basically those clients are paying that on a yearly basis to have their companies maintained here in Costa Rica. Their potential clients are foreigners who either live here already or who are thinking of coming to Costa Rica. because bilingual legal services are more profitable than just legal services in Spanish here, as you can imagine. Very minimal social presence, not much communication with their current database other than sending them bills. Again, where do you start with a legal firm like that? Same sort of strategy.
You can go down the same route, and I think all of those things would still be applicable. Social media has huge power and huge reach, and anyone that tells you otherwise, I think, is just delusional. But this is where I think we were talking about this a little bit before we hit the record button. It's not about the latest and greatest and fancy new shiny toy to play with. I think this one, you really have to come back down to the basics. And the basics are, if I'm looking for a company in Costa Rica, the first place I'm going to is Google. So if you start thinking in terms of the content that people are going to be searching for, you can then break down the search intent. So you're going to have an education phase. So this will be someone, for example, who's currently sat in Florida, who's had enough of the US, and who's thinking, I'm going to move down to Costa Rica and I'm going to buy a hotel or whatever. They're in the position whereby they're now looking for educational content. So the content that you're going to need to create for a legal firm that's looking to do this is going to be, what are the benefits to having a company in Costa Rica, for example, or how does the legal system in Costa Rica work for expats? Specific more maybe to their particular area in case people have already found something. But you're going to try and break it down into an educational phase of content, and then also into trying to get the organic keywords, which will be setting up a company in Costa Rica, or, lawyers, company admin, whatever it might be called, or however it's most referred to. You can find that out from the keyword research. Is going to allow you to then basically identify what those keywords are that people are really looking for when they're ready to make a transaction. And those are going to be two really key things. I think there's an element of gaming that to start with, which would be to get it growing. I would probably use Google Ads, Google AdWords, and make sure that, no matter where somebody is, especially if they're local, they're finding you top of search, because that's where you're at in that kind of business, especially if you're then charging £1,000 or $1,000 retainer on a yearly basis. There's money there, and there's a lifetime value of a client. If the client stays on average 3 years, 5 years, there's a decent enough amount of money there that would warrant paying 20, 30, 40 bucks US for a lead. And then even paying up to $500 for a conversion, because that actually an average conversion equates to about $5,000 worth of business. So that would be my first thing, because if you've got that, then that the people that are looking for it are looking for it straight away. Then content creation, in the sense of trying again to help people understand that, is going to be very important.
So I think I had an idea after we booked this in, I think, Chris, or maybe a week or two before, which was to try and find clients for this firm in a bit more of an abstract way, because the firm also has an accountancy firm that's partnered. It also has an escrow company that is partnered with it. And I thought, I know lots of foreigners in this country who have become friends over the years that we've lived here. Why don't I start a podcast about moving to Costa Rica and just interview all these people I know? And then from that, develop a following, which can then lead to some sort of, and this was a question I was going to have with you, some sort of affiliate deal for the services of these clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about two different things now, right? So
sorry, mate. I'm getting
So the first idea is, how does the company itself do it? The second thing is how could you do it? Well, there's a ton of ways, right? And again, you've already mentioned that. So you could start a podcast, you could build a website around that, you could create that content as to, breaking down that information and the educational stroke intent to purchase content that you're looking for in those search engine keywords that you really want to go after. I think there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. The idea being is, which one's better, right? So if you end up as an affiliate introducer, then you're creating a business that potentially has benefit for you in the future. If you're trying to help a business and the way you get paid is like we do as an agency, agency talks to client pays agency does work, client does better. That's the kind of scheme of it. So two very, very different things. But I think whichever one you're going to go down the route of, it always comes down to the same thing, which is building this stuff takes time. And it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about because it's not flashy. It doesn't sound good to say to people, right, this is going to take
Of course,
this is going to take 6 months of really hard work. Sounds crap in comparison to buy this click funnel and you'll make millions whilst you sleep. And it's something that I have a real issue with, because when we're talking to clients, they're like that, no, we need like results now. And you're like that, great. Well, good luck. I hope it all works out really well for you. But the idea being you're not going to get SEO results in 20 days. And people need to understand who their clients are as well. So the reason I'm saying this is we always go back to, what's the purpose of this? What are we trying to achieve? But somebody who is looking to make such a mammoth decision as to leave whatever country they're in, go and start a company or buy a business or do something like that in Costa Rica, for example. Realistically, what's the sales timeline going to look like? What does a sales cycle look like? Because I think once you start talking to these guys, you'll realize that actually from initial conversation through to somebody actually doing it, you might be shocked and surprised to find out it's 6, 9, 12 months of contact, communication, answering questions, alleviating fears, making sure they understand how the system would work, then figuring out the capital, then figuring out the requirements. Then they start to look for a house. Then they come and visit for a visit or 2, 3 visits. So basically, you get to a point where actually to generate money as an affiliate, what's your basis for generating money? Is it every time you get a lead and you pass it on to them, they give you $5? And because you don't know which leads are going to work out to do anything in particular? Or are you only going to get paid if they get paid, i.e. you got to start generating leads ASAP, which might take you 6 to 9 months already. And then from there, your first payday might be 6, 9, 12 months later, depending on what the sales cycle looks like for somebody considering relocating and starting a company in Costa Rica.
Especially relocating now with the unique situation we find ourselves in the world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's definitely a long process. I think another one of my questions, which kind of leads in with this and leads back to the legal firm that we're just discussing and a couple of other clients, where is the balance between wanting to include the business, either the business owner or members of the team of the business in the content creation process, or being the content creator for the business, if that makes sense? Because obviously I'm a foreigner in this country. It's maybe a bit different for people who are from here, but for me, working with someone locally to say, hey, we need you to create a video to put yourself out there, talk in English about these services and what you can provide. People aren't as typically outgoing to do those sort of things who are part of these businesses. Okay, what's my question? I've got to make it a bit clearer. So my question is my question is do you guys do content creation for businesses, or is it solely like, hey, we will consult with you to help you create content for your business that's going to help your audience and move your business forward long term?
So we do both, right? Okay. We do a done for you service as an agency, and that usually gets to the point where, companies grown to a decent enough size where they say, look, we'd like to hand over everything and we don't really want to be too involved. Now, every business needs to be involved with their agency, with their freelancers, with their content creators, or with their own marketing department within the company. Otherwise, nothing works, right? You can never get to the point where you're just doing your own thing and they don't care, because you need to understand what the business is doing. You need to understand what they're concentrating on, what they're focusing on. What are their priorities? What are their goals? What are the services that they want to really push and that they need to push? What do their current internals look like? What does the sales cycle look like? What's the return on investment from anything they've done in the past? You need them to be part of your team if you're going to create content for them. And again, you need to become part of theirs. And I think this is something where people forget to distinguish between the two, but forget also that doesn't mean there can't be a blend. So we also offer coaching services as well as done for you. And a coaching service is purely consultancy, right? So we're talking to people about how they can use and harness the power of social media to start generating more leads, because that's what people are after at the end of the day.
So that involves explaining to them the power of creating a video, helping them understand that, when you create one piece of content, it doesn't mean you only have to share it once. It involves helping them with outreach and what my business partner calls hand-to-hand combat, which is a series of, 8 to 10 weeks of actually getting in touch with people and connecting with people on LinkedIn. These sorts of things they work. Like, we know they work because, in fact, that's exactly how I met my business partner today, through one of his hand-to-hand combat kind of methodologies. But more importantly, we use it for ourselves. And then we end up working with these people and they'll say to us, yeah, but is that really the right way to go? And you'll say, well, you're on this call and you're now paying us money to help you. And the reason you ended up here is for exactly the same reason. So all of these things become part of that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think one of the hardest parts for especially smaller businesses, once they get to a certain size, it becomes different. But for smaller businesses, it always comes down to the problem of resources and time and everything else. So again, the same sort of idea as the experiment that we're doing. But if you can get onto a video and record it, and again, not everyone loves doing video. People say to me often when we first start working with them, no, I'm no good on camera and one thing and another. Nobody is, right? Everybody starts somewhere. But the fact is, we all carry around an iPhone or a Samsung smartphone, whichever. And all of these cameras, all the phones, now have a HD camera and the ability to live stream directly to the internet. Like, this is crazy. We literally have the power of the BBC 20 years ago in our pockets. And it doesn't cost you anything more than actually having bought the phone and having a data plan already anyway. So why wouldn't you maximize that? So when we talk to clients, and especially the early stages, it doesn't matter, right? We're going to choose one topic, you're going to talk about it, or even better, we'll interview style you on a conversation on Zoom, for example. What ends up happening, they can respond quite well. They don't feel like they're having to control the conversation or control everything. So they get a little bit more at ease. They can then talk. They talk really well because they love what they do. They love the services that they offer their clients. They can tell that story really well. And invariably from that, we can now help you create content. Because we can take that, we can cut us out of it. We can add a really simple opening screen. Why does X company do this? And then literally we can have the founder talking about it. And we can even then get them to take videos, photos, or whatever else from around the business that we can use and incorporate into that. But again, we can then take that video, we can transcribe it, we can get a load of content written wise that will help us to then write blogs for them. And now we know the tone of voice, we know how the founder or the lead in the business is talking about the business. We know the terminologies that they're using. We know the kind of words that they use to describe it. And now we can build out content around that for them. And the same principles always end up coming back to it. As a business owner, if you're worried about being the champion and the face of your business, you're in for a really rough time, because regardless of how big you end up, when it comes to the very beginning and the early stages, and especially if you're a one-man band founder to start with, you are the brand. Whether you like to believe it or not, no one's buying your fancy logo that you spent 3 hours, using word art to create. No one cares.
So
what they want to, but it's exactly that. What they want to buy is me, or what they want to buy is you. That's what they're looking to buy. That relationship, doesn't matter if you're doing B2B, B2C, online, retail, anything else, that experience ends up being a human to human experience. And as much as people end up forgetting that, it actually causes a huge amount of problems. So they start talking about their business as a we instead of an I, or they're even when they are a we, but they're scared of saying, today I did this, and actually this is my voice, and actually I'm writing this blog article. In our company, in the agency, we did it very early on. We have 4 of our team members that are phenomenal. We all have written and contributed content to the website. Everyone is tagged as to the content that they write. If they want to write as we did this because we were all involved, that's great. If they want to write as I did this, I'm absolutely happy with that, because they're taking ownership of who they are, what they've done, what we do as an agency, and everything comes together because there's 4 of us. There's 4 individual unique voices. There's 4 unique styles. There's 4 unique thought processes. And people forget that if you don't show who you are to the rest of the world, the chances are they're not going to feel like they have a relationship with you. They're not going to build trust with you. They're not going to really know enough about you to then take that decision.
For sure. I was going to say there's one of your podcasts that you interviewed the author of. I think the book is called Influencer, and I listened to that podcast. I can't remember the number of the episode, but I ended up buying that book. And you may have spoken about it in the podcast, but kind of like staff advocacy, like the helping any staff member in the company to, really be put on a pedestal if they're creating content. And we've started to implement that a little bit with this legal client, and that is going really well. There's like one guy who's super on board and super pumped because every time something goes out, he can share it with all his friends. And it's crazy how simple that is. And I got that from that podcast. But just that one simple thing, I'm like, this is making it a lot easier. It's crazy.
We ended up working with a technology firm turning over millions, very, very successful firm. They do very, very well. They wanted to really start pushing and using social networking to help them to drive more brand awareness, get more leads, generate interest in the company. And one of the first things that we asked was, right, okay, how many employees? And they're like that. We got 56, 58. I can't remember off the top of my head. And as soon as we heard that, I thought, fantastic, right? That means that no matter what you're doing, you're getting 10, 15 shares as your sales guys repush content, as your tech guys repush content. You've got to have likes and comments because your team's getting involved and one thing and other. And then you sort of look through the social platforms and you go, okay, guys, right. So let's put this into context. If you yourselves are not willing to share what the company is doing, why would anybody else? Simple.
Yeah.
But it's a concept that, if more people actually bought into that, and if more people, instead of writing the policy for your company as to what people should or should not say, if they started encouraging them to just be themselves and realize that for most of us that aren't trolls living under a bridge and complete keyboard warriors, instead of swearing, I'll go with keyboard warriors. But for the majority of us that are slightly more intelligent, we can look at a post and I can distinguish whether he's talking or she's talking about the brand or on behalf of the brand, or whether they're just ranting a little bit because they've had a bad day. But those two things shouldn't overlap so much into the extremity whereby staff members are worried or scared to get involved in something or a conversation online because they're not sure how it will be seen by somebody in senior management. When in reality, the more these people are seen, the more conversations they're involved with, the more exposure that the company is getting, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, right? Profiles get 10x the kind of interest that pages do for companies. So your brand page is okay, whatever, but your 50 staff members, you're 10xing the benefit of them using their profiles. And then on top of that, you're 50xing because you've got 50 members of staff.
Yeah, it's so simple, yet for some reason, it's sometimes those things are the hardest for people to understand. I had an ex-employer, one of my surf coaching employers, who had around 30 surf coaches, dotted around the world, living their lives, having the best time ever, taking clients surfing. And there was this big policy in our contract that said, you're not allowed to upload any videos, not allowed to tag anyone, not allowed to, basically have any involvement with us online. And it was just like, oh my gosh, these people, how big of an opportunity could you miss? Like,
that's the thing though, right? If you've got 30 surf instructors posting twice a day, every day, tagging the company and showcasing how awesome it is to surf with one of their guys, and even better than that, right? As an employer, you say to all 30 coaches, here's a special link, chuck it in your bio on Instagram. Anyone who books through that will give you 5%, 2%. Yeah. We'll give you a $5 flat fee for every new client that you bring in through one of your links. Now, suddenly, you don't just have 30 employees working for you running surf lessons. You have 30 brand ambassadors killing themselves to create awesome content whilst doing the job that they love, whilst building your business for you. And on top of it, you're never paying them anything extra other than if they bring in money for you. Why wouldn't you do it?
you can show them the value they get as well, because it's going to help their digital presence. It's going to help their digital footprint for their career, which I think most people realize now that is just something that is part of the package. Sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, but with an affiliate link, you don't even have to go with the whole brand presence. You can say, did it bring in any sales? And they'll be like that. Yes. So, perfect way of doing it, right? You win-win for everybody. But also, again, like there's this idea that the brand and the people should be distinctly different. And the problem is that a brand actually should grow around the people. It should be a reflection of your people. And it often is. So when you have a brand that looks super cool and trendy and funky and online, and it's sharing all this cool content, and you go into the office and it's all black and white, everyone's wearing a suit and tie, looking down at their computer, no one's talking, right? And you're suddenly like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't the same connection that I'd made in my head with, I wanted to work with this company because these guys look awesome. And then you get there and you meet a bunch of people that are just like dullards who don't want to talk and they only see life in, grayscale. Then you're suddenly like that. Wow, this doesn't fit, right? And I always remember we were with WeWork Labs. We do quite a bit of online sessions at the moment, but we used to do in-person sessions, which was fun. But I remember talking to a startup. They hadn't released their MVP yet, and they were panicking, and they're just sort of flapping around talking to me about, well, what are our brand guidelines? What should they look like? And what should our tone of voice be? And I was like, right, okay, let's take a step back, breathe. How many of you are there? It's like that. There's 2 of us. I was like that, right? Okay, so you guys are the brand guidelines. You guys are the tone of voice. How do you talk? And they were like that. Yeah, but for the brand, we want to make it. No. There is no brand currently. Whilst there's only 1, 2 employees, even 4 employees, right? We're a direct reflection, pretty much online as we are, in person as we are, when we do the podcast, as we are, when we do video content. And when people meet us to have a conversation on Zoom to talk about it, funnily enough, they find the exact same people in front of them. Perfect. That's the way I want it to be. But that idea that you're trying to develop this brand guideline or this tone of voice to make it super special and great, if it doesn't reflect who you are, you're going to be seen through within about 6 seconds of actually starting a sales call. And people are going to be like, what is this? Like, these aren't the guys that I wanted to talk to. And it goes both ways, trying to come across more professional or more intelligent, or trying to use bigger words and one thing or another. And then when you come to a call, that's not how you speak. That's not how you talk. And actually you're a bit more casual, and actually you don't wear a shirt and tie. You only ever wear a hoodie. Be who you are, right? Be the authentic version, not the authentic version that you think people want to see. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people to distinguish.
For sure. Mate, this is good. I can't wait to listen back to this. I'm like, I don't have to take notes because I'm just going to be able to listen back to it. It'll be great.
I'm going to put it behind a paywall just for you.
Thanks, mate. What was going to be my next thing? What are the top 5 positive outcomes you've experienced since starting your podcast?
Jesus, Malcolm, this is getting deep. And also there's no prep on my side. See, I'm usually the guy asking the questions, so this makes it more difficult for me.
All good. Take your time.
To be honest, the number one thing that has been absolutely phenomenal for me is getting to have awesome conversations. So every week, at least once a week, I end up on a call for an hour with somebody I've never met before who works in the industry, and I get to just chat to them. That's all I do on the podcast. I'm not desperately trying to get them to make a mistake. It's not like journalism that I've done in the past where you're trying to find out the truth behind the truth, and none of that matters. It's just I get to have awesome conversations. So, we're now at 59 episodes as of today, but we've already recorded some 60 something episodes, and it's just been phenomenal, right? Without this podcast, I never would have had these chats. Without these podcasts, I wouldn't have met some of the amazing people that are now in my network. I wouldn't be having more conversations that follow up from these things. And, you and I have ended up chatting on Instagram about, I think it was about fitness tracking data, really randomly.
Yep. Super random.
Yeah. But none of those connections happen, right? If it wasn't for the podcast. So I think that's the first thing, right? It's just been phenomenal for that. It's been a great way to network. It's been a great way to meet new people. And again, I just get to have these awesome conversations for an hour once a week minimum. And I think that's just worth its weight in gold anyway. The second thing I'd say that's been really cool has actually been getting a couple of emails. Yours for one, but we've also had 2 or 3 other people reach out to us because of the podcast. Was listening to this, would love to have a chat about X. And it's not necessarily about getting people onto the podcast because they've emailed or anything else. It's more the fact that it actually means that something somewhere along the line has been of value to them. And that's what it's all about, right? From my point of view, I don't have to do this. I don't necessarily get anything out of it other than maybe some more brand recognition for what I do and my personal brand and the company's brand. But the reality is I'm just hopefully creating something that, so far we've hit nearly 7,500 downloads to date, which isn't huge and astronomical, but it's continuing to grow every single week, which is what amazes me. And we get to just keep experimenting.
That's amazing, Chris. The amount of downloads. And has the podcast been around for about a year, or how long now?
So I realized this the other day as well. This will show you how on top of things I can be. We launched it officially last week, and I completely missed the whole opportunity to put up, we're a year old. So I was too distracted because we had hit the 7,000 download mark. But what's interesting about it is we look at the stats now and our first 3 months. So again, let's say that the first 4 quarters, the initial stats were like 690 for the first quarter downloads. And now sort of seeing it as 7,000 last week when we hit the 1 year mark has just been phenomenal. And we're not spending money every month to publicize it. In fact, we're actually doing, this is terrible, right? I own an agency. I believe in social media. And we basically pretty much only post 2-3 times a week, which is when the episodes go live. And it's simply because we've been flat out with other things. We're trying to create new content for Social Link at the same time. There's just so much going on, and my internet has been god awful. So those are all my excuses. But ultimately, we haven't been doing what we tell other people to do, which is, we used to do the clips and short clips from the longer episodes to try and entice people in and stuff like that. And we just haven't been able to do it recently. But we're still seeing that growth, which means there's something about what we're doing, and it's all part of a bigger, hate the word ecosystem, but I'll use it today. And it's all part of that bigger ecosystem. It's the same reason why James O'Donnell and myself are doing a 30-day personal blog challenge. So every day for the last 28 days, both of us have had to create and post a blog for our own websites. We're building out this Social Link show, which has just gone live on the podcast as well. We're doing all of these things because we honestly do believe in it. We don't just tell people to do it. We're living it. We're doing it ourselves. And every time we experiment and we challenge ourselves to one of these things, we can see the results, and then we get to talk about the results. And if we can do it, then pretty much everybody else can as well, right? None of these things are unique to me or unique to James. Yes, we might be more comfortable doing them now because we've done so much of it, like creating videos, like recording podcasts, like having conversations like these. But none of that came to us, from one day to the next. All of it comes from getting started, keep doing it, consistency. And then suddenly you find the things that really work and that really have an impact.
That's awesome. Another question. Do you think that, this is a little bit off topic, but do you think the digital space over the next few decades, as somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, do you see it becoming more monopolized over the next few decades to the point where it won't be so easy for creators of content to access all of these very cost-effective ways to get their message out there, if that makes sense? Do you think it'll get to the point where, the internet giants are so big that becomes a much more expensive thing? Like it becomes something that requires a lot more capital than it does today?
All the big companies have realized that the only thing that matters is people. So, talking about Google, for example, behemoth company, make billions every single quarter and they're loving it. But without the people creating content, YouTube would make £0 and 0 pence. There's nothing out there. So Facebook, the same thing, right? If you take away people's ability to post, share, make content, go live, whatever it might be, it's just going to die. people aren't going to use it. So unless we get to the point of, and I use this example a lot, but Ready Player One, I don't know if you've read the book or if you've seen the film. I recommend the book over the film.
Yeah, I've only watched the movie, but I loved it.
Okay. So read the book. It's even better and far more geeky. That's probably why I liked it. But the idea is, right, that's the dystopian future that we're talking about. It gets to the point where one company controls where everyone goes and where everyone hangs out and what happens after that and whoever gets to keep control and everything else. But I think it's, one, we're quite far away from that. Two, at the moment, we're still in that kind of teething phase of the same things have happened in the past when TV news started, when newspapers started, when radio broadcasts started, and it's this adaptation and getting used to the technology. And with social media currently, I'd say that we can see, recently there's more polarization than ever before. It's becoming almost like a brutal experience some days when you look at your Twitter feed or you look at Facebook and you see what people are sharing or people shouting at each other in a group or whatever it might be. And I think that's a real sad part of it. But the reality is the idea of all these things is to bring together like-minded people. So I'm in groups to do with books that I've read that I've really enjoyed or different practices. So things like The Miracle Morning, the book by Hal Elrod, which has a whole group of people that are now come together and they're all in that same Facebook group and everyone's talking and there's different ideas and books. And it's just this amazing community whereby I don't have to look at all the crap that happens. But if there wasn't those people, if there wasn't that community, if Facebook didn't have that ability to bring all those people together and allow them to share whatever they want to share, then basically it all goes away. That's the reality of it. So I think we're nowhere near getting to the point of being too scared about technology sort of becoming that monopoly or that kind of Ready Player One moment where, who's going to control the internet where everyone spends their time. Not yet anyway. And by the looks of how we've reacted to a lot of things recently, I'd say there'll be a lot of civil unrest before that happens, which might cause bigger problems than whether or not we can keep posting videos on YouTube.
That was a brilliant answer, Chris. Right, very cool. I do have one last question, and then, we can take it from there. But what are the top 3 books you've read in the last 12 months? Any genre.
Or
it can be listened to. It does. I'm an audiobook guy.
So I actually posted about this the other day. Do audiobooks count as reading? The consensus seems to be within my network, no, it doesn't. And I kind of agree with it, but I also listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I'm not knocking you at all. In the last, so what are we now? We're in July. So in the last 7 months, by the beginning of this year, I was just like that, right, I need to read more. This is really annoying me. I don't know why. I just kind of stopped reading. Life gets busy. And I was like, I want to read more. I want to make a concerted effort to read more. And so this year, I've actually read, I'm in the process of finishing my 15th book this year, not including what I've listened to on Audible. And there's been definitely, I can give you 3 books that have massively changed my outlook on a lot of things. So I mentioned one of them, which is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And fantastic book about the idea of, how you wake up, how you start your day and what you're focused on for the rest of the day. I disagree with a couple of things within his book, which is kind of the idea of, get enough sleep so that you're healthy. And that's something that I talked about in one of the videos that I did recently as well. But there's another book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, which I think is phenomenal. And I think it should be sold as like a must with Hal Elrod's one, just so you make sure you get the balance of good sleep and also the morning routine. The second one that I read that really, really enjoyed was because of Tim Ferriss, like a lot of things that happened to me, funnily enough. But it's the Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. So for anyone who doesn't know about Stoicism or anything else, it's a really interesting read in the sense of really short letters that you can read. And it's him writing to a friend of his, Lucilius. And it's constantly filled with advice, how to live your life in a stoic way, which is more focusing on the here, the now, who you are, what you do, how you behave, and the importance of that rather than what you have or, what you show other people. So that would be my second book. And my third, which I had in my head earlier, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I finally read it cover to cover and I absolutely loved it. So Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill is kind of renowned for being the granddaddy of all self-help books, really. And it was written nearly 100 years ago. But phenomenal book. And take out the Grow Rich part if you're thinking, well, I'm not interested in money. It's a recipe book for how to keep yourself focused and how to figure out what it is that you're actually trying to do and then actually make it happen for yourself. So I found that a fantastic read. I tried to read it twice before years ago and kind of got bored. And in fact, when I picked it back up this time, I even found my page marker, which was like page 47. And I just hadn't managed to get past that. But really recommend it. Give it a go. And those would be my 3.
Brilliant recommendations, mate. I think I'm at I've only read like half of Think and Grow Rich, just like you. So I should go back and visit that.
Yeah, I think it's, but you have to read the right book at the right time sometimes. I'm a big believer in that as well. So, if you're getting halfway through it and it's not feeling right or you're not really getting into it, then chances are it's not quite yet the right time for you to read it all the way through. But try it again, and if you get all the way through, let me know. I'd love to know how you found it.
Yeah, mate, I'll get into it. So a quick other question, which I don't have written down actually, mate, but do you structure your day in a certain way? Do you have a routine each day where you go, okay, I'm going to work these hours, and these hours I'm going to be, with my family, and these hours I'm going to be kind of digitally disconnected? Or is it more you take it as it comes and let it flow?
So I'm very, very rigorous in terms of my morning routine. So every morning has to include kind of a few different things, which now includes journaling, blogging because of this challenge, but that might continue or not. I'm not sure. Journaling, blogging. I go for exercise. So either a 20-minute run, 25-minute run, or a 30, 40-minute walk. And reading. I'll read a chapter of a book. I don't care if it's a 3-page chapter or if it's a 25-page chapter. I read a chapter of the book. So pretty much every morning, that's how I start my day. And as bad as it sounds, if I wake up, on average, I wake up between 6:30, 7:30 without an alarm or anything, go to bed fairly early. And that is my kind of first hour and a half, 2 hours of any day is focused purely on me, what I'm trying to achieve, because that has just massively propelled me since I started doing it earlier this year. The rest of the day comes down to a mix, right? So depending on the day, you've got more calls, less calls, more coaching, less coaching, more work that needs to be delivered on, let's say. And also then we have things like the podcast, content creation opportunities and everything else. So it very much depends on where we're at in those different cycles, what's going on in my diary. But I'll always try to schedule downtime during the week. So that might even be as simple as, tonight I'm going to finish at 5 p.m., for example, and then cut off. I don't care. I'm not dealing with work emails or anything else. I won't be digitally disconnected because especially whilst we're all in semi-lockdown or, different countries, etc., I stay in touch with all my friends and everything else through social media and online on phones. But I find that it works well for me in the sense of I don't want to wake up every Tuesday morning and think, today's the accounting day or anything like that as a business owner. So I try and keep it as fluid as possible.
Great. That's really helpful as well. That's really helpful. Yeah. Where we live in Costa Rica, it's very much a things just get done when they get done type of attitude with a lot of the professional community. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the culture here and everybody accepts it. Everybody understands it. And having come from a totally different culture myself, now that I'm actually interacting professionally with nationals, before I was my wife and I were just operating kind of at that hotel. So we didn't have this experience with local people. But I'm like, man, am I just the most organized person in the world? Or is it just because I'm from a different culture? And, back in Australia, maybe everybody's disorganized. It's just, it's hard to know.
It's all good. Listen, Malcolm, I was going to say, so I've really enjoed this, but I'm looking at the clock thinking, I think we've just hit the hour mark, which is probably going to make this the longest.
Time. Sorry, mate. Yeah.
But not at all. It's been awesome.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Well, listen, I've really enjoyed it. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope that if anyone's listening still an hour into it, that they liked it. If you can leave us a comment or anything else on social media, you can find us on all the usual platforms at All About Digmar. And today, my interviewer, instead of the other way around, has been Malcolm. And Malcolm, where can people find you online if they want to connect?
So the easiest is my Instagram. So that's Malcolm, MALCOLM LHILL. It's Malcolm Hill is my full name. Or if you go to Google, and I think if you type in Malcolm Hill surfer, I should probably pop up for something.
More ways for people to start hating you, just to find a bunch of pictures where you're surfing. Yeah, that's the stuff. I like it. Well, listen, Malcolm, again, thank you for emailing us. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I really enjoyed this episode as well. So hopefully if anyone else is listening and they do want help, get in touch, and maybe we'll do one of these every now and again as well. And again, good luck with everything in Costa Rica. And as soon as you're back on a surfboard and on beaches and posting, I'm going to stop following you on Instagram.
Chris, it's been my pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.
The All About Digital Marketing podcast is brought to you by Social Inc., a distributed digital marketing agency specialized in delivering results through online campaigns. Whether it's content marketing, social media marketing, online advertising, or web design, we've got you covered, from strategy through to delivery. If you're struggling with your digital marketing, get in touch today by simply visiting www.socialinc.co.